Hello and welcome back to the Our Podcast. This week we're doing the having a yak.
We are yakking today.
We are. It's been a long time since we had a yak.
Too long.
I think the last yak that we had was before I went to Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking 2.5 months ago?
Probably.
Something like that.
Way too long. We have been very delinquent.
Yes, we have. We've been working on other projects, and I was away for a weekend on a hike and just so much other stuff going on. And also there's a lot that goes into producing one of these podcasts. It's not like a normal video. It takes a lot longer to film, to prep, film, edit, and release.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a huge project, and I kind of dread it each time. So
It's a lot harder for you because you do all the work. And all I do is just sit down here.
You're just a pretty face.
I'm just, yeah. And I just share my brain.
You just yak.
I just yak, which is the best job in the world, to sit down here and just talk and not have to do any of the work. It's like eating all the food and not having to do any of the dishes.
I guess.
And you have to do all the hard stuff. So I realize how tough it is. But I have to say, of all the things we do together as a father and son on these little projects, this is my favorite thing.
Yeah, the end result's pretty cool.
I like it.
So if you're new to having a yak and you don't know what the hell we're talking about, this is our bi-weekly podcast. Well, supposed to be bi-weekly podcast where you guys ask us questions in the comments. They could be sports related. They could be travel related, life related, relationship related. Any question that you want to ask us not any question, but be respectful, obviously.
Well, sure.
We'll have a conversation about it.
Mm-hmm. And when we do the answers or have the conversation, we could wander anywhere.
Yeah, we've gotten off track quite frequently.
That's the fun time.
So the questions that I'm going to ask you in this specific Havin a Yak are from basically two months or 2.5 months ago.
Right.
So a lot of these questions I read when they came in and forgot about. And it's going to be fun to go through them again as if they were new, because I haven't looked at this in a while. So.
And I've never seen them, so.
Yeah, exactly. You're never given the knowledge prior to recording of what the questions are going to be, so you're always on the spot. I have roughly 20 questions here.
All right.
I'm not exactly sure how long it's going to take us to get through. These could be 40 minutes, could be an hour and 20 minutes.
Just depends. It's really up to us, isn't it?
Yeah. So the first question is a very easy one. And it was actually asked 3 times.
Oh.
How tall are you guys?
Interesting.
That's never been asked before.
No,
Yeah,
no.
Take it away.
I'm just under 6 feet. I'm a little bit more than 5'11", but not quite 6 feet. So I call myself 5'11".
I'm probably just under 5'10" on a good day. If I stand up real straight, probably 5'10", but on a bad day, 5'9". So
yeah.
I'm not very tall.
Oh, interesting.
At
this rate, we'll be done soon.
That's right. Question number 2. Would Brent have still married your mother if she was a Boston Bruins fan?
Oh, yeah.
I don't even think she was a hockey fan, which is worse than being a Boston Bruins fan.
Yeah. And look, when you're 20, 21 years old and you're scouting the planet, looking for a bride, they're really on the list of deal breakers.
Yeah.
The hockey team she cheers for is way down that list.
I agree. I 100% agree.
Yeah, totally.
What is your favorite Jelly Belly flavor?
Well, I don't know enough to intelligently answer based on the fact that I like jelly beans.
You are a fan of beans of the jelly variety.
Yeah. But jelly bellies and jelly beans, to the extent that they may be different, I don't know if I can give you a cogent answer.
I think jelly bellies are pretty big in the States and not so much in Canada. So.
Right.
Just give me a general flavor of...
Well, when it comes to jelly beans, and if Jelly Belly makes these flavors, then I'm instantly a fan. I like anything citrus, particularly lime.
I like grape. Grape anything.
And jelly beans in Canada, there's different companies that make them. Dare makes them, Ganong makes them. There are different kinds, and I forget which one I need to stay away from. But I don't like black jelly beans because I don't like licorice mixed in with my other flavors. I don't mind licorice when it's time for licorice.
You just don't want to be surprised by licorice.
Yeah, it's like party mix. Party mix should not have pretzels.
I agree.
Party mix, everything else is fine.
Yes.
But pretzels ruin party mix.
I completely agree. And there's nothing wrong with pretzels.
No.
Pretzels should be eaten on their own time.
Exactly.
There's pretzel time.
There's pretzel time, and don't mix pretzels with other foraging food.
I completely agree. There's bits and bites, and there's party mix.
That's right.
In Canada. I don't know which one is which, but one uses actual like pretzels that are like this big, shaped like pretzels, and the other one uses pretzel sticks. I don't mind the pretzel sticks. Still shouldn't be in there, but I much prefer the pretzel sticks than the pretzels.
Totally agree.
Do you ever eat hard pretzels with mustard?
Never.
You should try it.
Really?
It might blow your mind.
These are like the little pretzels you get in a bag?
Yes.
With like yellow mustard on them?
Yes. So good. Like it might actually like change your life.
I'm trying to picture that. So the jelly beans that I get, back to jelly beans.
Yeah.
I go for orange, lime, and lemon flavor, all the citrus. Not grapefruit so much. I don't think there are any. And then cherry. The red ones need to be cherry. But if you get the wrong kind of jelly bean, the red ones are cinnamon.
Yeah.
The green ones are spearmint instead of lime.
Right.
And then they've got black ones, which are licorice. And it just totally ruins the jelly bean situation.
I like grape and strawberry.
I like grape too. I don't know if I've ever had grape jelly beans.
What about a popsicle?
Popsicle, my favorite popsicle.
Wait, is it banana?
No.
Okay.
No. It's the 3 flavored one.
Oh, is the rocket one?
It's a regular popsicle brand. I don't know if they have those in the States, but up here in Canada.
It's blue, white, and red.
Yeah, and the white is a citrus type flavor. It's lime or it's lemon or something. The white, and the blue is blueberry probably.
Yeah,
and the
it's
red
good.
Is
It's really good.
I really like it.
I think it's called rocket something.
Maybe it is. Yeah, but that's my favorite popsicle. When I was a little kid, like I guess I didn't care what popsicle I got. Like orange was usually the most common variety in the cooler at the store, at the corner store. So I loved orange popsicles as a kid. I would eat them until my entire inside of my mouth was orange.
You'd be pooping orange.
Probably was.
All right. Next question. If you got offered a job in Newfoundland, would you take it? Why or why not?
That's for both of us?
Yeah.
I would not object to having a job in Newfoundland. I would take it. But I'd have to do so under the right circumstances of lifestyle. It would depend where in Newfoundland, for instance.
Okay, let me I'll include something with this question. You have your same job now. Pays the same in St. John's.
Right.
You didn't live here prior to getting the job. Maybe you lived in Toronto. So you had to choose between Charlottetown and Newfoundland. Same pay. What do you choose?
I would still choose Charlottetown, mainly because I'm closer to the things that I like to do. The only drawback for me, there's so many pluses, better than anywhere else pluses of living in Newfoundland. The people, the culture, even the weather. The weather can be surprisingly horrid, but it can also be way better there at times when it's not so great here or on the mainland. So I can handle all of that, but I need to do my 2 or 3 trips a year down to the States by car with my buddies and all that. And if I were living in St. John's, or even if I were living on the other side of the island in Stephenville or Corner Brook or someplace closer to the ferry to get to Sydney, it would completely complicate that whole process.
I agree. And that's one of the reasons why I wouldn't want to live in Newfoundland. If I had the job that paid the same, I'd always choose the other location over Newfoundland. If it paid more, I'd start to consider it. Depends on how much more. But
I've spent a lot of time in Newfoundland with work over the last 10 or 11 years, and I just absolutely love it. I love the people. I love the food. I love the whole cultural scenery. I like the terrain. Grossmorn Park in the west and St. John's and that whole area in the Avalon in the east. We've gone down the Avalon, down through Renews and Trepassey, all the way down to St. Shots. It's the most gorgeous country, and Newfoundland is just fabulous. And the unique things that Newfoundland has that no one else has or can have. It's amazing.
Do you get fish and chips when you're there?
I don't, but only because the fish in the fish and chips in Newfoundland is almost always cod. I'm not a cod
you know,
fan.
haddock.
I'm a haddock fan.
All right.
So if I can get haddock, I'll get it. But if it's no-name fish, I'm going to anticipate that it's cod, so I'll get a burger.
Sounds good. This question is for you.
Okay.
Brent, do you have any stories about being a pilot?
Oh, all kinds. That's why I became a pilot, so I'd have stories.
You've already told your main one where you had to land on a highway.
Mhm.
That's in a previous podcast if you'd like to go listen to
Yeah.
that. So don't tell that one again. But
Certainly not. Some of my most memorable times in the air are just very innocuous times. We took our original plane over to sell it in Moncton. We were meeting the buyer in Moncton. The buyer was from Ontario, and we had already bought our replacement plane by then. So we flew over to Moncton. I flew the replacement plane, the newer plane, over to Moncton, while one of our other partners flew the plane we were selling to Moncton, and then all of us came back in the replacement plane once we delivered the aircraft. And it was a very quick flight. We just landed in Moncton really fast. My landing was awful. It was runway 24. It was terrible. And but we survived it and all that. It wasn't that bad, but it was just, it seems that my worst landings are with the most people in the plane that are there to witness my worst landing.
that's unfortunate.
If I'm flying by myself, my landings are great. And if I have someone who would want to impress, especially other pilots, my landings are a lot less
Just gonna
great.
blame it on the extra weight.
I could. That's probably what I should do. But actually what happened was, even though the plane was heavier because it was so full of people, we caught a wind gust, or I caught a wind gust, just as I was about to touch down, and it blew the plane up in the air 15 or 20 feet. And then I had to settle. Like, what you have to do then is add power, actually, because you don't want the plane to fall 15 or 20 feet and go slam back onto the runway. So you want to add power to increase lift so that the plane doesn't do that. And I added probably just a little bit more power than I wanted to add. I had lots of runway to play with, so I wasn't worried about that. But as the plane settled down, I was flying basically with a little bit more power in, and the wheels were maybe a foot off the pavement. And I flew a long, long way, and I was waiting for it to settle, and it never did, and I kept pulling the stick back, and the plane kept tilting more and more back this way, and it was a perfectly safe and well-done landing in a way.
Yeah.
But finally, when I chopped I didn't want to chop the power and have a hard hit, and I ended up not, but it was an ugly landing. It was ugly.
And you guys used to have that spring in the plane, or the shock in the plane that would sink down on the right side, I think it was.
Yeah, actually in the left. If you landed,
left,
the minute I would turn, the plane would sink down on the left. Of course, I'd sit in the left, and I'm a pretty heavy guy, so anyone in the plane would blame it on the fact I'm a heavier guy. And then it wouldn't pop back up. You'd have to get out of the plane afterwards and push underneath the wing and get it to slide back up again.
Little quirk.
Yeah, but I have all kinds of little stories like that are not very interesting, but and none of them are really about me being a great pilot. They're usually the other way.
The next question is kind of one we just answered. We filmed before this a Q&A for our Patreon members. We had I sent not a message, but a post on Patreon, and allowed our Patreon contributors to ask us questions. So this is very similar. If you're not aware of what Patreon is, it's the funding site where you can contribute to us financially and help support us, and you get some perks and some extra videos and stuff in return, and you get to communicate with other Patreon members. And one of the things that we did recently was the Q&A, and so I'm not sure if your answer will be the same, but probably similar. We could redo it, I guess. Where is this question? What is your favorite language and why?
Okay.
I guess the question in the other one was, if you could learn a new language, what would it be?
Right.
So this is, what's your favorite language?
My favorite language. Well, I guess it's the one I know. And the reason, I think that all people who speak English are very, very lucky that they happen to have been raised in an environment where English has become an international language.
Absolutely.
You can go to almost any country in the world, and someone who knows English will be there to speak to you. And we take that for granted, and we shouldn't. So whenever I encounter someone who's able to speak English, and I know it's not their first language, whether they're a French-speaking person in Canada or a Spanish-speaking person on an island in the Caribbean or whatever, I'm very grateful. I don't always say it, but I'm very grateful that they're doing the hard work of communicating, and I don't have to.
Yeah.
But the international language of aviation is English, of really a lot of communications is English. The cultural influence of the United States on everywhere in the world
Oh, yes.
is massive. And we get to ride along in the wake of that. And by the time that cultural influence has swept over the world and people of all, not all, but so many people have learned English, we get to speak English to them, and we don't have to do any work.
Yeah.
And again, that's a gift. That's a gift to us. I try never to forget that. But that for that reason, I would say that my language is my favorite.
I thought you were going to go off the table a little bit and say maybe Morse code.
Well, I was thinking that. But of course, Morse code is not so much a language as it is
A code.
a code. It's a code. It's a character set.
It's unique though. You're in a very small handful of people who can.
I am. I do know Morse
speak
code
or understand Morse code.
Yeah, and it's too bad it's fallen out of favor just because there's so many other more fast ways of communicating digitally than with Morse code. But Morse code will always be there as the last resort if everything else fails.
Exactly.
And I really count myself lucky that I do know Morse code, and I still continue to use it from time to time.
Exactly. Yeah. We've seen that demonstrated in, I don't know if you guys, I'm sure a lot of you have, but Stranger Things, the show Stranger Things. There's some communication that has to happen, and that was some Morse code, but it's a little questionable.
Yeah, anyone who's into ham radio to any degree, whenever we watch a show that has a radio thing in it, like Stranger Things, we're always wincing because it's never what it should be.
Well, can you imagine being a medical professional and watching there's so many movies and shows that have hospitals and stuff, and it's just, I can imagine being very frustrated watching those if I was a medical professional.
And the worst of all of this is, it wouldn't cost anything in excess to make it right.
I know.
Why don't you just do it right?
Exactly.
And if you've hired yourself a technical expert, if you have a doctor on the set to get the terminology right for the actors, use him. Use her.
Absolutely.
Bring a ham radio operator onto the set who can say, don't press the microphone button when the other guy is talking because you can't interrupt him. Just have that's a basic thing. You can't interrupt people when they're talking on the radio. It's only one way at a time. Sorry.
That's how it works.
And you could change the story and hardly any, and make it right, and still have all the other things you want. The only show I've seen that handles ham radio correctly is Last Man Standing.
Okay.
Which is a sitcom that ran on ABC for several years with Tim Allen. And he had a wife and 3 daughters. He was the only guy in the house. And he's a ham. And Tim Allen, the real Tim Allen, has since got his license. All the people who work on that, not all, but all the heavy-duty production people who work on that show happen to be ham radio people.
Nice.
And they put ham radio into the storyline. And he has a ham station in his office, and he has one in his house, and sometimes he lets his kids talk on the radio, and it's all right. He's got all the right paperwork and QSL cards and stuff on the wall.
That's cool.
It's awesome. And the season was canceled by ABC last year, but now because it was actually produced by Fox, Fox had a chance to bring it back on the Fox network, and it's coming back.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Where were we? If you could spend a day with a famous person, who would it be?
Oh, man.
I think we had a similar question to this in the past, maybe.
Any famous person at all?
Sure.
Wow. I'd have to think.
I would choose Keanu Reeves because a lot of people don't like Keanu Reeves. I think he's a bad actor. I actually really like Keanu Reeves. I think he's a good actor. And everything that I've heard about him, about how genuine and nice he is to fans and people, just a regular dude, I think it would be cool to hang out with him. Ask him some questions and stuff.
I would go off book. I would pick someone like Lindsey Graham.
Who the hell is that?
Lindsey Graham is a United States Senator from South Carolina.
Okay.
And he's a Republican, but he's not totally in the Republican camp all the time. He'll say what he wants to say, and he thinks for himself, and he's hilarious. He's the funniest guy. He could be a stand-up comedian, and he would be a millionaire.
Wow.
He's really funny, and he's very thoughtful, and I've always liked him. And hanging out with Lindsey Graham for a day, I think, would be a hoot.
Sounds good.
All right.
Here's a question I think you'll like. If you could visit one monument, what would it be?
Wow.
Is Mount Rushmore considered a monument?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
That would be mine. The biggest, grandiose monument of them all. That would be mine.
Like, I'm trying to think of one that I haven't been to already that I love. Like, I've been to the Jefferson Memorial. I think that's a magnificent monument. The Washington Monument, the last time we were in D.C., it was under construction. There was scaffolding around it, so we didn't see it all.
Yep.
So that would be cool. I've not been to the Statue of Liberty.
That's true.
So that would be cool, too. So it depends what you count a monument, I guess. But
isn't there a Canadian monument in Flanders?
Vimy, actually.
Vimy, yeah.
Vimy Ridge in France.
It's like two big structures of...
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
And now that you've reminded me of that, that would be a fantastic visit for all kinds of reasons.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
They celebrated the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Vimy Ridge last year, and there was a huge commemoration at the monument in France.
Yep.
There's a depiction. There's actually a mock-up of the entire monument in my office building.
Oh, really?
In the main atrium where I work, just outside my office door. And it's beautiful. And apparently in person it's unbelievable. This is an interesting anecdote, and I don't know, hopefully it's not too political or off the wall. The monument was dedicated around 1929, 1930, when it was built.
Okay.
The Canadian Prime Minister was over there, the King of England, King George VI at the time, or George V maybe it was. No, it was, anyway, doesn't matter. So the King was over there. And this was in the 1930s, prior to World War II. Of course, when World War II happened in 1940, the Germans swept all the way through Western Europe, including France. So here we have a monument erected by Canadians to their Canadian war dead, and now the entire monument is occupied by Germans. And the monument, in some way, some people's monuments would celebrate the victory over the other side in World War I. So what did the Germans do? But the Canadian monument was so well done. It wasn't celebrating war. It was really about the grief of the death that happened at Vimy. And it was the grief on all sides, really. The Germans, when they took possession of the monument, because they were now in control of all of that territory, they guarded it.
Really?
Yeah, they guarded it.
Interesting.
And kept it from being involved in any operations or demolition or anything. And it was some of their most elite troops, actually, that guarded it. And I think that's, there's a lot of horrible things happen in war, but sometimes there's a bit of honor that still finds its way. So that was cool.
Yeah. Very cool, actually, yeah. If you could relive any moment in your life, what would it be and why?
Well, if your mother's watching, it's the day I got married. If she's not watching, I think if I could relive any day, not a personal day, but a day that I was...
It doesn't have to be a day, just a
be
time or a moment.
It would be that being an attendee at the Stanley Cup Parade in 1993. If I knew then what I know now, that it would be so long, and maybe forever, before Montreal ever wins a Stanley Cup, I think I would have savored it more at the time. Yeah.
Well said. Yeah. I think mine would be the first cruise I went on in 2009.
Oh, yeah.
It seems kind of like a weird answer, but I love cruises. I love being on the ocean, and I would love to relive that first experience of a cruise again, that week. Next question. Do you like vintage cars? And if yes, what would you own if money were no object?
I'm not a car nut. I love the look of a beautiful car, like a 57 Chev or a Corvette, an old Corvette. If I could have any heritage car of my choosing, it would be a 1967 Ford Fairlane two-door.
Because that was the first car
That's the first car I had. It was white on the outside, red interior, and I would love to have my hands on one of those.
I think I would choose a late 60s Corvette because all the Apollo astronauts drove Corvettes.
Right
on. What was your first job and how much money did you make?
I guess my first job was in the family business. My dad and mom owned a store. So as a teenager, after school hours and on Saturdays, I worked in the store. So I don't know if that would count as my first job.
Yep, it does.
Okay, well, that was it.
How much did you get paid?
It was probably $5 an hour or something, or less, maybe. It would have been minimum wage at the time. Yeah.
My first job was probably on the farm next door, and specifically in the summer, stocking the barn full of hay. There's lots of jobs to go around, and year by year it changed what I did specifically. But I always remember, I think I made, like, for the whole summer, which would have been 2.5 months of exhausting work from like 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. I think I made like $300 or $350 total for the whole summer, and being stoked for it.
Yeah.
Like that's so much money back then when I was 13 or 14 or whatever.
So you got your first job really working for somebody else long before I did, because I consider my first job not to be working in a family business, because if they weren't paying me, I'd still have to be there.
I guess.
Yeah. But my first job not working for family was a summer student after grade 12. I was going to university, so they had a student summer job program, and I got hired on as a flagger on the highway.
Gross.
So I worked with a paving crew all summer long that did mostly chip seal work. So it wasn't actual asphalt pavement, but it was chip seal, where they lay gravel and then put oil and then gravel on top of the oil and compact it. And I did that for a summer, and it was dirty, hot, unbelievably long hours, and bugs and everything else. But I remember feeling the same way, like there was real money going into my bank account, and it was quite awesome. Yeah.
My job after that, I think, probably would have been a hockey referee.
No, that's right.
That was probably my first technical, official, government recognized job. But here's an interesting question. What are your thoughts on Howard Stern?
Wow. When I was younger, I remember Howard Stern from actually being on the radio. He was on WNBC in the evenings. This would be in the early 80s. And I couldn't wait to listen to him, because back in the early 80s, there was no internet. There was no way to get things that were irreverent like that. And he was the most on-the-edge presence on the media that I could access. And I listened to him, and I thought his bits were hilarious. I'd sit there at night and just not watch TV, and instead I'd listen to WNBC in New York for Howard, because he was going to do something crazy. And none of the bits he did back then, it's funny, because even though he's got his own presence on the internet somewhere, the things he did back then he could never get away with now. Because the whole, our sensitivity about humor and diversity and equality, all those things have changed too. And like, he would make fun, for instance, of gay people in the early 1980s.
Really?
Oh, he had a show called Lesbian Dial-A-Date. What? And he would have these people on and try to connect them with each other, but he was totally making fun of them the whole time, right? And it was, at the time, of course, everybody was different. All of society was different. I thought it was hilarious. Today, I wouldn't find that hilarious. And I don't find Howard Stern interesting at all nowadays, because I'm older and I have more to do with my life than listen to a fool. But he is a fool.
I have no opinion of Howard Stern whatsoever.
He's a fool. When I got my satellite radio, it actually was part of the Howard Stern package for promoting them when the company first signed him. Sirius, I guess it was, first signed Howard Stern. They had these radios that you could buy for $500 or whatever it was, and they had a lifetime subscription to Howard Stern on this radio. But the one I bought was a surplus radio that had been crippled so that the Howard Stern channel wouldn't come in. But otherwise they were free, and they never shut off. They weren't illegal, they were legal. And I thought, this is great, because I get the radio, but I don't have to even have the Howard Stern channel. I didn't want it. I have no interest in it. So that's how I feel about him now. But back in 1980, when you could get nothing else anywhere, he was the guy. Yeah.
Next question. What is the best thing you've ever garbage picked?
I'm trying to think if I have ever garbage picked.
I've never garbage picked.
I don't think I've ever garbage picked. So
I mean, we're going to like a flea market where people are selling their garbage.
Yeah. Secondary to garbage picking, I guess, would be finding random things on the ground and deciding that you're going to take it. But I have no answer for the question.
Me either.
I've never dug in the garbage.
Me either.
Thankfully. Maybe that my days of digging in the garbage are soon to come. I don't know. But thankfully it hasn't happened yet.
Which era of hockey would you play in?
Play in? Oh my goodness. Probably the original 6 era. I would think back then, I think players had more respect for each other. There were no helmets. Goalies didn't even wear face masks because the shots were lower, at lower speed. People had wooden sticks. It was more traditional, and you didn't see some of the brutality and the high speed slam bang that you see now. So I guess I'd want to protect myself.
I would choose this era for social media and reasons. Like I think it's cool that players have Twitter, and you can interact with players on Twitter and
that is cool. Yeah.
Follow their fans for their Instagrams and see what their see pictures of their family, their dog in the lake, and just having a good time. See that they're real people. I like that aspect of players being able to interact with their fans digitally.
Yeah. Well, as we saw from some mail time, someone sent us a magazine from like the late 60s with pictures of the players and their lovely wives, you know.
Exactly.
Isn't this so lucky because his wife is so pretty? And we saw all that. That was our social media of the day, wasn't it?
I guess. You're right. What sound or noise do you love and hate?
Wow. There's many answers to this.
There is, yeah.
Many answers to this. The sound I love the most would be the crashing of waves up against the shore.
Totally.
I love that.
Yeah, I agree.
Not too far behind is the sound of any jet engine aircraft.
Another good one. Yeah.
And not too far behind that is any propeller-driven aircraft.
And then NASCAR.
And then NASCAR. The noises I hate, I think 2-stroke engines. Really? Should be absolutely banned. Chainsaws, leaf blowers, all that stuff. Whippersnippers. They're just the most annoying things, mainly because they don't run at a constant RPM. People are always revving them because that's how you operate them. I've run a chainsaw, I've run a whippersnipper, and they're a necessity, and you wear your ear protection. But it seems, especially where we live in a place that's still undergoing construction in our neighborhood. We have a street being built beside us, for instance. Yeah. There's a constant run of machinery all the time. And even on a Saturday or a Sunday, everybody around here is mowing their lawn. Sometimes we have to mow the lawn ourselves when the neighbor doesn't kindly do it for us. But it's almost as if all of society has conspired together to make sure that I don't get 10 minutes of silence ever.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a motor running somewhere all the time, and it bothers me. I don't know about you when you get to be my age, which is a long time away, thank God. But as I get older, I get less tolerant of all kinds of noise.
I'm already there.
Yeah, okay.
Crows.
Oh, crows are terrible.
Freaking hate crows.
Yeah.
They're just out there making a bunch of noise, and they're not even doing anything. They're just sitting there making noise.
Yeah, but we don't know that.
But they're not doing anything. If they were doing something, like if they were looking for something, making noise, okay. But if they're just sitting there looking around, making noise, what are you doing with your life?
They're talking.
Get a life.
They're talking.
Go do something. Go grab some sticks or something.
We can't interpret what they're saying, but they're saying important stuff. Well, crows are brilliant.
If they're talking to each other and they're sitting next to each other, let's tone it down a little bit. There's no need to yell at each other. I can hear you from 17 blocks away.
Well, if they're yelling at each other, it's probably because they're married.
Maybe. Noises I like, fan. I love the sound of a fan. I have to sleep with a fan on, so
I know.
It's just a white noise.
And for me, that would maybe do it if I didn't have what I do have, which is podcasts.
Yeah, because I listen to
podcasts all night long. People talking. And people talking like we're talking. Just calm, rational, not foolishness, not the yelling at each other. I can't handle that. But just people talking. I want boring stuff like we do.
Exactly. Actually, some people have told me that they actually fall asleep to this podcast sometimes.
Awesome.
Which is fine, yeah.
I know I do. Like, even though I participate in the podcast every 2 weeks or every week, I load it along with all the other podcasts I listen to, and I usually make this like the second or third one in the playlist. So after I've fallen to sleep with something I'm actually interested in, then if I wake up an hour or two later to roll over, it'll just be this boring stuff that...
So you put yourself to sleep.
Yeah, it's great.
Interesting. Here's a question I think you're going to enjoy. What other profession do you think you'd like to attempt?
I've probably answered this before, but the other thing I think I'd really like, many things I'd like to try, but the one I think I'd be instantly half decent at would be to be a TV weatherman.
Oh.
Except for the fact that I look the way I do. Like I have a face for radio, they say. So, I wouldn't be this buff guy with the
Right.
six-pack, and all that. I'm a heavy guy, and I got moves and all that kind of stuff. But I honestly, as far as the content goes, the ability to explain the weather to people and to stand in front of a weather map and tell them what we think is going to happen and what already happened, I'd love to do that.
Maybe you could be like a military or forces meteorologist, where you just tell your superior what the weather's going to be in certain places, and you don't have to look fancy.
Yeah, and then you get the next day, it'll be like, Taylor, it didn't rain yesterday. I won 20 push-ups.
Yeah, I guess. I thought you were going to say pilot, commercial pilot, or lawyer.
The lawyer thing would very much interest me. Not so much to do lawyering in court, but to teach the law. I did teach the law for a while, although I don't have a law degree of my own. And I'd love to have a law degree and then teach law with a little more authority. I think I can already teach it quite well just because I'm interested in it, but to have that paperwork on my wall would be great. The commercial pilot thing, I really have great respect for what they do, but the commercial pilots I know would tell you that because it's a job,
That's true.
it's not what you think it is. And so much of their time is spent on record keeping, filling out forms, filing their reports and their logs, showing up on time, filling out their schedules. It's just paperwork all the time. And the actual flying part, they hardly do any of that because they load the pathway into the autopilot.
I guess, yeah.
And they sit back, and they're responsible for 300 people in the back, and they can't do what they want. And they're very jealous of private pilots who can just get in their plane, and as they're taking off, they still don't know where they're going to go.
It's true.
A commercial pilot just thinks that's the greatest thing ever. Because when a commercial pilot takes off, there's only one place he knows he's going, and he has to get there on time.
Exactly, yeah. No, that's a good answer. Speaking of other things, though, have you written any more of your book lately?
Not in the last couple of months. It's just been so busy at work. My brain is pretty well sucked dry by the time I get home. I also need a better laptop. In order to be more portable and to write when I'm able to write. Right now, the technology arrangement I have just isn't conducive to writing when it's convenient for me to do that.
You need a new laptop.
I definitely need a new laptop badly. I'm not that I'm asking for one.
Oh, no, I didn't mean it like that.
But I do have to get one, and it has to be just the right one for me.
Yeah.
I don't play games. I don't need a lot of power graphics-wise. I just need a laptop that's not too big, quite light, quite thin, easy on batteries, but it has to run Windows programs because the software I use for writing and some of the other things, so like the Chromebook I've got, and you and your mother got for me a couple of years ago, is a wonderful piece of kit, and I use it every day, but I can't use it for writing.
Exactly.
And that's my problem. Yeah.
All right. If heaven exists, what do you want God to say to you as you arrive?
Surprise, surprise, this is your lucky day.
I just think you should be like, sup? What's up? I don't know.
I don't know. It'd be something like, I bet you didn't see this coming. Something like that. Yeah.
I already know the answer for this question, but have you ever been to Scotland?
No.
Would you like to go?
I can't wait.
How much time would you like to spend in Scotland?
6 months minimum.
6 months
Oh,
minimum.
I would.
You'd just be looking at the graveyards.
I would. I'd be crawling graveyards. I'd like to move to Scotland. And I'd like to, and this is people think this is probably a little bit morose, but if I go to Scotland, I want to live on the most windswept, dank, windy, wet, rainy, cozy place. And I want like a earthen walls and a thatched roof and a big coffee machine and my laptop.
All right. Maybe that's where you can write your books.
That's where I want to write my books. I want to go on some island. I want to go to the Isle of Mull.
All right.
Or some place like that. I would love to go to Scotland and stay there long enough to become part of the scenery.
What about driving on the other side of the road?
People have to drive me around.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
What is the worst injury that you've ever sustained?
I'm a very, very lucky guy. I'm really trying to think of one. I've had some cuts and scrapes when I was a kid.
Hurt your ankle pretty bad once.
I did, and that probably is close to the worst pain injury I've had. I rolled over on my ankle, on my right foot, and I was almost immobile for about 3 weeks. And I thought I'd broken it, and it was so swollen, but it was just a really, really bad sprain. As far as non-visible injuries, I was moving a computer monitor at work about 15 years ago, and that's in the old days of cathode ray tube monitors, where all the physics comes into play. I'm standing in front of a long table full of workstations, computers for our students. There's a keyboard, then there was the computer, and the monitor was on top of the computer. And I needed to get in the computer to stick a RAM or something. So I leaned forward. All these things you're not supposed to do. I didn't lift with my legs or anything. I just leaned forward and picked the monitor up and moved sideways and put it down. And I felt something happen in my lower back. And it was just a twinge at the time. I didn't think much of it. I went and I opened up the computer. I did what I had to do. I closed it up, put the monitor back, and it was about 2 or 3 days later. And I ended up developing, I had actually prolapsed or slipped a disc in my back. And I ended up, I don't know if you ever noticed, but my left leg is thinner than my right leg. I don't have a calf muscle on my left leg like my right leg at all. They're quite different because the nerve, the sciatic nerve that goes down my left leg, was damaged and it never fully recovered.
Really?
Yeah. But due to lots of walking and exercise, they could have, the doctor gave me 2 choices. We can operate, or you can just start walking enough that you'll develop core strength in your lower body, your lower back, and the muscles that you develop from walking upright will eventually develop to the point where they'll surround that disc and kind of put it back into place and keep it there.
That's interesting.
And that's what's happened. But in the meantime, the damage was done.
Wow.
Yep.
I was going to say kidney stones. That's not really an injury.
It's not really an injury, but
painful.
Feels like someone shot you.
Yeah.
They're terrible. Absolutely terrible. I've had them, not lately, but I used to have them before they made them go away.
All right.
What about you?
Me. Took a hockey puck in the forehead, got a bunch of stitches.
Mm-hmm.
Took a baseball bat in the forehead, got a bunch of stitches.
Mm-hmm.
Took a hockey stick in the bottom lip, pierced it. Pretty sure I broke a rib once. That was probably the most uncomfortable because you couldn't sleep for like 2 months.
And you can't put a cast on it.
There's nothing you can do.
Yeah,
just have to live with it.
Yeah,
medicate. I think I hit my toe on something. I was getting up from the couch and I hit it on a table or something. That was probably the most annoying injury I've ever had. My whole big toe, I didn't break it, but something happened. I have pictures of it. Like the bruising is crazy. And bruising moved from my big toe where I hit it all the way to the rest of my toes and the top of my foot.
Wow.
It was pretty crazy.
Wow.
That hurt a lot. I have a 2nd-degree burn on my arm from an oven. That hurt.
Work accident.
That hurt a lot.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm pretty lucky, actually.
Yeah, me too. I've never broken a bone, to my knowledge. I think I might have broke a tailbone, but... Oh, yeah.
You notice the difference between
I do.
this and this?
Yeah.
I broke this when I was in grade 3.
For those of you not watching, he's referring to
you're not going to be able to see
the
this.
pinky of his right hand. His right pinky.
Do you know how I did it?
No.
Stopped a soccer ball.
Oh, yes. I remember
Boom,
that.
right there, yeah.
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 No wonder you don't like soccer.
All right, last question, I think. Yes, last question. Do you ever go back and watch your own videos in which you could change or rephrase something?
I'm sure I have.
I don't go back and watch my own videos. I don't like watching myself. I think some actors don't watch their own movies and stuff. I don't watch my own videos. I wouldn't say there's anything that I would rephrase or re-say as far as like, oh, I shouldn't have said that kind of thing. But we did an NFL video where I called a team by the incorrect name, and unfortunately that video got a lot of views. So I would go back and fix that mistake, because that was
Like
definitely a mistake.
A couple 100,000 views by now.
Yeah, like 280,000 or something like that. So that was just a stupid mistake on my part. I called them the Texas Longhorns instead of the Houston Texans, and it just slipped of the tongue. Didn't even know I said it at the time, and just a mistake. Wish I could take it back, but I can't. So people make mistakes, whatever.
They do, yeah. I was lucky that when I was in broadcasting on the radio, I don't think I ever said anything then that I had to walk back on.
That's good.
That's very good. As far as here goes, I do watch. I watch, not everything, but
pretty much.
Well, I watch quite a bit. And I guess mostly it's a curiosity to see if it looks on the screen like it felt on the other side of the screen.
Okay.
Like just to see if my experience in being part of the production matches my experience in being a viewer. And it's mainly a training thing for next time. If I notice I'm saying a word too often, I'll try not to say it as much.
And that's something that you kind of went through near the beginning when we started making videos. You used to say, you know. You used to say that a lot.
And I don't now?
You don't say that anymore.
Really? Because I'm trying not to.
Yeah.
But I know sometimes I let things slip in that I don't want to let slip in. And I have an editing filter that I try to operate in my brain all the time, but it very frequently lets me down. But as time goes on, I think I'm more focused on not being annoying.
Yeah, and it's the little things like the and the
Yes.
And everyone does it. But after you've done that for a while, you understand that there doesn't have to be a sound at all times. There can be a pause of nothing. It'd be fine.
That was hard for me to get used to, because when I was in AM radio in the early 80s, dead air was the capital offense.
Yeah.
You could not have silence. You just couldn't. If you were on the CBC or NPR in the States, where silence was part of a long storyline or something, maybe, but not in commercial radio, when every second had to be filled with some kind of sound. And now, with this kind of show, it is not.
That's right.
Necessary. And that's great. It's great because sometimes silence is important.
And I think it's unconscious too, because when you're having a conversation with someone off camera, just in general, and you're in the middle of saying something and you don't want them to interrupt you or to say something, you say or to let them know that you're not done talking. So you just get used to, after the while, especially talking to the same person, you can leave pauses in between stuff and they kind of know.
You can.
Yeah.
The other thing I try to do is be conscious of every word that I say. And I often fail at this, but I try to be conscious of every word I say. A lot of people aren't and don't focus on that. They say things that they don't even know what it means. They say things that they don't know the origins of it. They say things because they think it makes them sound smart. One of them that drives me nuts lately is starting a sentence with the word so.
Oh.
Now, if you listen to Quirks and Quarks on CBC, where they interview lots of scientists, or even a political radio show, they'll have a university professor. And this seems to be where it's come from, the university academic community. They'll ask someone a question. We have with us today biologist so-and-so, who's an expert in the mating habits of the chimpanzee. We have a question from one of our listeners. When do chimpanzees mate? And then they'll throw it to the other person. So, chimpanzees, they start the sentence with so. And some of these people, they don't know they're doing it. Well, I don't think any of them know they're doing it because it sounds so stupid. So is not a preposition. So is not something you start a sentence with. So is really a conjunction. I only got 3 quarts of milk and I was supposed to get 4, so I have to go back to the store.
Right.
Like, so is to join things together, not to start anything. But someone heard someone say so and thought it sounded smart, and the disease spread to all of the English-speaking academic community.
Right.
So, because this is a conjunction, so, I've determined to myself I will never say it.
Interesting.
And I'm always on guard. I will always never say, or I shouldn't, that's a terrible way of doing it. I will also never say, on a go-forward basis, or going forward. I will never say those things.
What do you say instead?
I say, in the future, which is what I've always said.
Okay.
Until some ding-dong came along and said, well, in the future sounds not academic enough, so I'm going to say, on a go-forward basis. That just sounds so stuffy and stupid. I'm all about trying to simplify the language, not to make it less intelligent, to actually make it more intelligent by being what it's supposed to be.
Interesting. You're at a different level than I am. You're trying to fix things, and I'm trying to, instead of saying me and Chris, say the proper Chris and I, or something like that.
Well, sometimes me and Chris is right. Like someone gave a free meal to me and Chris. That's actually correct.
Yeah.
And all you have to do to decide is take Chris out of it. Did they give something to me? They did. They didn't give it to I.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're the doer, then it's Chris and I. And it's I used to teach this stuff too, right? And people, I tried to teach them tricks to do things like that.
Yeah.
But YouTube has ruined a lot of people.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me and my buddies are going to do this and that. Just take your buddies out. Would you say this? Me is going to do something. You never say that. Like, you know better. It's just that people need to think.
It is about thinking, because when I write, if I'm typing, my speech is very good because I'm thinking about it. But if I'm talking, it's just right off the top of the head. I just don't care, I guess. But anyway, that's a good way to conclude it. I think there's no more questions left. So
that's no fun.
Thank you guys for listening or watching. If you are watching on YouTube, if you could hit the like button, that would be awesome. And please leave a question down below in the comment section. And if you're new to Having a Yak and you want to hear previous questions that we've answered, I recommend going to check out the first 6 Having a Yaks that we've done. And if you don't want to listen or watch them, but you want to know what questions were asked, you can just go through the comment section and see what questions.
We've had some really good people who are subscribers who have gone through the podcast and tagged certain times when certain subjects start. And that's really great. It's really hard to do.
It is hard
with all the other things you're doing.
I can't do it. I don't have time.
But someone will usually write in and say, okay, for those of you who need a little guide, at 3 minutes and 27 seconds, they start talking about the mating habits of chimps and whatever. So, yeah. That's
right.
It's cool.
So thanks, guys. I really appreciate you guys watching and listening. That really means a lot to us. Hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed already. If you're found this and you're not aware of our main channel is called Post to Post, where we talk hockey on a pretty much daily basis, especially when the season's going on. But yeah, just appreciate you guys watching, and leave your questions down below. And we'll see you at the soonest 2 weeks from now, probably at the latest 3 weeks from now. Depends on, there's a lot of stuff going on in the summer for us. So hopefully we can do another one of these very soon. But I do have a bonus Having a Yak podcast coming with a guest that was here a couple of weeks ago that I'll release at some point. So keep an eye out for that.
Cool.
Anything else to add?
No, I'm good. 2 weeks from now, we'll be away at our family reunion.
Right, so it might be 3 weeks from now.
Might be 3 for the Havin a Yak.
Yeah, 3 for Havin a Yak. So. Yeah, take care, guys. Have a good day, and we'll see you in the next one. Adios.